let's start with the album Few. You guys, this is your second record since being back. And what made you decide to go the crowdfunding route as opposed to the tired and true way of going through a label, asking for money, having to borrow it, probably never recoup your costs and all that kind of stuff?
I think you just answered your own question.
There's supposed to be a
Um,
little bit of sarcasm in there. I guess my voice
right.
didn't inflect it good enough.
Well, I think that I think that we were very scared at first about how unpunk rock it is to do this crowdfunding situation, and we sat and studied a lot of other people's campaigns to try to figure out like the ins and outs and what was positive about it, what was negative about it, what there was a lot that could have been hokey, I guess, or like kind of like cliche about doing it. So in looking at it, we just kind of wanted to be true to form and true to the fans, and make sure that it was everything we were doing like made sense for the fans, because it essentially came down to us just we didn't want to go backwards. We didn't want to make an album for less than we made Heavy Fruit with. So it really all boiled down to working backwards from the budget and saying, this is how much we need for said project, and this is how much the perks are going to cost. So let's just get down to brass tacks and figure out if the kids wanted a record. Um, and we were completely caught off guard by the response, and so humbled by the fact that it all went down that way. I mean, up until right around the end of the process, we were like, shit, how do we get this in stores worldwide? Like, how do we have a release date? When are we going to release it? Did we even
Hit the right
entertain the
numbers.
idea? Well, I mean, entertain the idea of going with a record label, just because we knew that distribution thing was a tough nut to crack. So for us, I mean, that was when Spinefarm kind of came in, because we knew we needed marketing, and we needed to have the album come out everywhere, and to actually have a push, unlike other records that we've done. So it was kind of a no-brainer at the once we sat down and said this can be done well, and we can do it and not be silly about it. And I think it just ended up being a really positive thing for the band and morale. It gave us a really big boost, so we were all really happy about that. But yeah, so humbling to see the fans just take control and be stoked about what happened. And it shows even more in and like at the live shows now. Like, kids are just like stoked to be a part of it, and we can't be happier.
You had said that you had looked at other crowdfunding campaigns to see how they did to kind of get inspiration for what you would eventually do. What goes into choosing, Kickstarter over GoFundMe over Pledge Music over whatever other sources there are, and then what goes into the perks that you offer?
Um, well, we had some very like we have really good friends in the Freaker team. They're just like a novelty beer koozie kind of thing, but they did really well on Kickstarter when they did theirs, and asking them, what would be better off for us. I think back when we started this, I don't know that there was like a GoFundMe or like Pledge Music. I don't think that those had really started off. So we were really dealing with very few of these crowdfunding sites. I think Patreon might have been one of them that we looked into, but that was more of it's like I guess it's more like a monthly type thing, like kind of for sustainability.
Right.
We noticed a lot of bands on Indiegogo, and I think like Protest the Hero was one of the bands that we saw first, and we were like, oh, they made a large sum of money doing that, and um, so that was kind of a no brainer, only because it just we saw so much music being funded on that site.
Right.
And they also had the option of doing like an all or nothing campaign where if we didn't meet our mark, we got no money. That was one of the things that like we were pretty adamant about doing. Like we didn't want to cheapen it, and we also wanted it to be like, you know, to be as important as it could be, and to put some sense of urgency behind it, to make the goal. So yeah, that was kind of how we chose Indiegogo. I think because they had those options, and that it all seemed a little more user friendly on our part. And so we did the video and basically just paid out of pocket for that to make that video, and we did the show, promote a little bit, and then just sat and waited. I think the perks were more of us just looking at other bands and what they had done for perks, and a lot of them did kind of seem like silly, like, which I mean is fine, but with certain things like like coming to your high school and having a chicken sandwich party, like I couldn't get behind, like none of us could really get behind anything like that. So I mean, like the lifetime guest list was a cool idea, and like people actually got that and have been using it, and it's awesome to see that like coming to fruition, because it's such a young process now. And the vinyls will be going out this month, like with the hard copies of the CDs and stuff. It's like it's almost done. We're just waiting till we can like delete that site, which it's like the end of the era. But yeah, I mean the perks, they came out of just like kind of wanting to stick with this cult following that He Is Legend has had. So in making designs like back patches and stuff, things that are like not far out, not intangible, and like stuff that kids would want to buy anyway, or that a label would do when they put out an album. So doing packages was kind of like the easy one at first, just like, but then like using our artisan friends that came out of the woodwork that wanted to help, like at that time they're called South Castles, now they were called Castles Couture. They did the smoking jacket. Friends of ours, jewelry designer friend of ours did, like a piece based off a necklace that I had for years. And we had a friend make a action figure that went really well. I mean, just like things like that. Yeah, they did like the gardener action figure, which was cool. But yeah, things like that, just kind of with a little help from our friends, I guess, just getting them to kind of step out, and we were showcasing their talents, and they were helping us to really jump this off. So it worked out really well in the end.
With the success of the crowdfunding as a whole, did you find that when it finally came time to make the record, that there's more pressure on you to put out this specific record due to the fact that it was funded by the fans as opposed to borrowing money from a label?
Absolutely. I mean, well, we had the record pretty much lined up.
The pre-pro and all that was done?
Yeah. I mean, we knew we were going to make it regardless. It was just, was it going to be lo-fi, done in a bedroom, or done in the studio that we're used to doing things in? And so, I mean, obviously when we reached our goal and surpassed it, it just became more important, and more like the urgency to make a killer Legend record was there, like, because it was like a gift from our fans, essentially looking at it. Like it was as if they were like, okay, yes, you do deserve to do this, so here you go, and just make a killer album. We knew we had some really good material for few, but I think more things came out of the woodwork during the process, just because there was like a sense of urgency. There was this humbling feeling that our fans gave us this opportunity, and we didn't have to rely on a label to tell us they couldn't afford it, or they didn't want to do this or that, or, and there again, like, we were out of our contract with Tragic Hero, and it was just like, this new age of what's going on in music, where like hip hoppers are dropping their
Mixtapes and all
albums,
that.
yeah, without explanation, overnight, and there's huge success in that. I think that the crowdfunding thing, if done right for said band that has, a following to ask for help for, I just think it's a new era, and it was nice for us to kind of prove to ourselves that we could do that. Um, because we could have easily renegotiated our contract and made another album that, is put in this position or this place. But just all of us as a core, like when we were sitting around talking about it, it seemed like it needed to be something different, and that was the obvious, the obvious end to, means to an end.
Do you think the record would have sounded any different? I mean, since you had already kind of pre-proed it and kind of knew what it was going to be, do you feel like it would have been different if it was released through a traditional record label stance? Or
Um, I don't know, because I mean, I don't think it would be much different. I know that you know, we have our format down for in studio work. Um, we've been doing this now since, after Suck Out the Poison. We've been going to Warrior Sound in Chapel Hill, Carborough area. Um, so that's like, it's kind of where we feel safe to record. So it's like, for us, it doesn't really, I don't know. I can't see that it would have been much different in the end, because when we're there, we kind of shut off to the world, and we just, we make the music that we make. And seeing as how we had the songs written before and during the crowdfunding, when we were ticking off the numbers, it was like, okay, like, we're ready to get in the studio. We just need to know how it's going to go down. So,
right,
yeah, I don't see it being too much different, but at the same time, I think we were given a freedom from the crowdfunding site that we wouldn't have had. We would have rushed. We would have been spending our own money out of pocket.
right,
So there was like, we were given some like a more creative freedom to sit and like be diligent and do our work in a different way, because we had no time constraints.
right. Speaking to that end, I know like when Misery Signals did their or their crowdfunding for Absent Light, and a few other
Hmm.
bands like you had mentioned, Protest the Hero. When you hit your goal and you have maybe excess money to do more things with, did you find that maybe you experimented a little more with adding little bells and whistles to songs that maybe you wouldn't have if you were under more of a financial crunch? And if so, is there a specific example on the record of that time being able to add to the songs?
I don't think that ever really played into what we were doing so much. I think that like I said, like when we're in the studio, we kind of shut ourselves off, and everyone takes their own time to do their part. I know that the cabin that the infamous cabin that we stayed in, um, was it was more of a perk on our end, to just something that we wanted to do really badly. We could have stayed at a different, like, we could have stayed at a hotel or something. There's less or more anonymity there, and it does seem like it's just a strange situation, like where you're housing yourself during the recording of a record, and the cabin was really something that we were stoked about, and it was, it just kind of fell in our laps. Ended up being cheaper than we thought. It was just an interesting place, because it's like used for weddings,
Oh
or
wow.
that area is used for, to host events and stuff. And we were there in the dead of winter, so it was just like, barren. Gave a really different feel. But I don't think the having excess money really did anything other than provide a small amount of cushion for us to really get everything done and pay for the studio time and the perks that we had made. I mean, also, like, there were certain things that came and ended up being way more than we had budgeted for, like mixing and mastering and shipping of said products. Like, I mean, that was like, those are things that you can't really calculate until like, you're like, you can assume that most of it's going to be shipping out in the US, and then realize that, oh wait, we've got like $50 shipping costs to Japan or something. Those things can just jump out and bite you. So
Yeah, I've learned. I've learned
yeah,
that with vinyl shipping.
yeah, right. So that in and of itself was, we were lucky to have have gone over, and all of the money that was allotted for, that we budgeted out and really spoke for, was pretty much spent the day that the money was transferred. Like, we wrote the checks and put them all out there for all of it. So yeah, it was an interesting, like, daunting thing to just be like, okay, here we go. We just made this money. Let's get rid of it.
um, this is the second record now with air quoting new lineup, newer at this point.
Yeah.
Does it feel like a second album for the band at this point with the newer members, or does it feel? And I mean, with you having been in the band for since the beginning,
Right.
probably doesn't feel like that to you. But does it? Did the air of everything kind of feel like the renewed energy of like, all right, here's our second record. Here's us, still trying to prove, that the Heavy Fruit wasn't a fluke. Like, we're back. We're able to put out a solid
Right.
record again. And I don't know if my question's making quite enough sense, but.
No, it makes perfect sense. We definitely, there is new life and like a new push to what we've been doing. Heavy Fruit was under the radar, I'd say, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, just because we came out of nowhere and there was not really a push for the record. But this just seems like we've been making the right moves, and it has all come from the new life that the band has. I mean, we've obviously hitting harder and we're on the road more. It's just like, it is a new life. I mean, the core members are still there. Me, Adam, and Matt are like, since day one, we get along. This is the reason why we can still do this, is because we've always been best friends, and there's no question of our loyalty. So,
right.
I think that's why we still have the sound that we have. But at the end of the day, I think it is like proof that it is a new era of He Is Legend, and that it's, it is kind of one of those things that we had to prove ourselves to ourselves in order to make it happen. But yeah, I mean, I think the fans can see it. I know that we feel it. There's a striking difference in the way that we, our discipline now, our work ethic, our just all of it, is, we just feel like a, more productive, more positive. The good vibes are here to stay, I think.
Yeah.
There used to be a lot of negativity in the band, just due to being jaded and just unhappy with where we were being placed by different record labels. So.
I think that's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, after X amount of years on the road, and you're just, you're
not
constantly
getting into a new level.
Well, yeah, not reaching another level, or pardon, not really, not being placed in the areas that you feel like you deserve to be more. Like, we've always felt like just like a rock and roll band, and then when you're being put with, like, these kind of teeny bopper highlighter bands in the early 2000s or mid 2000, like 2007 and 8, when we were putting out It Hates You, and just that album probably should have done crazy things, but it just didn't. And I mean, that's the luck of the draw with tons of bands. But I think that was where our mental instability came, after that record was said and done, we thought we were sitting on gold, and and just to watch it kind of just be like, well, we're not gonna, we can't do this and that. It is just strange. So the little break that we took was much needed, and we had to find ourselves again in the midst of all, like, the where the music was going, which has definitely changed. I mean, the state of the world right now, I feel like, is going to bring really great rock bands back out of the woodwork.
For sure. No, it was kind of. I mean, speaking. I mean, to you making a comment about how Heavy Fruit kind of flew under the radar. I feel like, in the traditional sense of it not getting much push through typical media outlets and such, I definitely
Yeah,
agree with that. I think the thing though is, from my perspective of just booking shows and being always aware of shows
right.
coming around to review them or just go to them or whatever, that it seemed like you guys hit the road and re-sparked interest in you by being back and being a great live band. So much to the point where, like, I remember seeing you guys pop up on a couple other tours, but it really wasn't until you guys toured with Wilson, like they're from around this area,
Yeah,
and buddies of
yeah,
mine,
yeah, yeah.
that I
Really
was
good
like,
friends
oh
of
shit,
ours.
like forgot that you guys are actually touring, and the fact you're able to do a headline run on at least
Right.
that run that I saw, like doing pretty decent rooms and stuff like
Yeah,
that. It was nice to see a band that had taken time away and coming back and being able to kind of maybe either get back to the level where they left off, or I kind of feel like actually getting a little bit further ahead than where you left off from what I remember. Um,
yeah,
just
yeah.
due
I
to
mean,
the excitement of the
we
band.
felt that. We felt that for sure. I mean, especially with that Wilson tour being like the arena we wanted to be in the whole time. Like more of a rock and roll scene, more of like, I mean, that tour was definitely a party, which is
It always is.
what, well, that's what Wilson's good for, and they're like, very very good friends of ours, and being out with them was just, another way of like rejuvenating this feeling of what's going on around us. I mean, and the same thing with Norma Jean. I mean, they've kind of come full circle in a lot of different ways, and for us to be out with them, it's just like something that, yeah, like, it's been talked about for years and years, and we never did it, and we finally did it last year, like almost a year to the date from this tour that you just saw us on.
Right.
um and it just makes sense because we were friends, we grew up around it, and it was like, this is a good, really good bill. um that's kind of where we are now, is just like playing the waiting game to see what we're going to do when we get back from Europe, and really trying to play our cards right. It is a chess game pretty much with things like this, but um I think that with this new album, there's even more life that's coming out of us. So we're lucky, we're very lucky, especially to have fans like ours. Like, it's something that we couldn't be more thankful for.
Well, we keep skirting around the issue of this new record, but we haven't really talked about the record
Right,
itself a whole lot.
right,
So
right.
let's kind of get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, for me, listening to this record over the last, I think I've had it for a week and a half now.
Hmm.
Something that's interesting to me as a musician, in the slightest sense, is I usually find the music first and kind of then pay attention to the vocal melodies and then kind of focus on lyrics kind of last.
Right.
Um, with you being the lyricist and listening to this album and kind of seeing how dynamic everything is, from being, like the first two songs, even, like, they're pretty different. And the
Yeah.
whole album has a lot of different vibes. How hard is it to come up with vocals for it, or even vocal cadences to go over the differing parts?
um I mean, that's been the name of the game for me since day one. um and I think that's just the the dichotomy that we've agreed upon, I guess. um Adam and I, we work well together in that way, where we have a, like, 100% trust ratio when it comes to what we're doing. So I know that he has, he almost writes as a, like it would be instrumental. to him, but he also has vocals in mind and never brings them to the table. You know, I mean, like, but that's kind of the fun part where it's like, you know, jigsaw falling into place. We trust each other in studio to never disappoint. And you know, it is that like childlike nature of, you know, when we get the same feeling that we did when we were 18, when you're pulling out all the stops, and you know, it's kind of like shrouded for a while because, you know, when we're in our rehearsal space, I can't hear the extra guitar parts, or you know, the little nuances or of the soundscapes that are created until all is said and done. So,
Right.
you know, I mean, you know, one little bend could take my vocal melody to a completely different world, you know. And I've always said that, you know, with Adam and you know, knowing how proficient Matt is, and just knowing what I'm going to get when the skeleton is there, that, you know, there's a doorway painted, and my job is to really create the story behind that door, you know. And I've always relished the fact that I'm given that opportunity, but also like it's an interesting thing to play with, you know. I mean, I've always loved like wordplay and trying to make these songs into stories rather than, you know, I mean, I do also love the love song aspect of writing music, because that's what it's all about, you know, and personifying some sort of idea into, you know, the love or loss, one of the two, is always, it's always made it, you know, an interesting task for me. This was a daunting record for sure, for what, you know, the reasons we talked about, it just being personal and for the fans. And so that made it, you know, it made it a little more to where I would either go crazy on a night and just like, you know, rip pages out of a notebook and rewrite in the morning, or like, you know, like just like half a bottle of wine deep and just like, you know, find something gold in this, like, you know, living in this ancient like 100-year-old cabin, just like drinking wine to stay warm. I think it was, you know, little things like that happen when nobody's looking, or like the things that you can barely explain. And, you know, I can hear them on the record. I know where those things are, but I mean, finding nuances like that vocally, or it's different, because, you know, you're in a booth and you're taxing your body rather than your, you know, your muscle memory, or your, you know, or your talent. For me, it has more to do with trying to recreate a live show, trying to have, you know, it's like that old one more time with feeling, you know. I mean,
Right.
that should be every time. And it's difficult to find an audience in your head when you're recording vocals, and to show that enthusiasm on record, you know. It's a very difficult task, but it's super fun, and really rewarding once you finally, you know, get the right take, or, you know, hear it all said and done. It's just like, you know, it's all worth it. But
When
yeah,
look,
that's that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, when looking at the lyrics alone, because sometimes, and I'm sure if you are a music collector or just a music
Definitely.
aficionado to per se, like sometimes when you try to read the lyrics in addition to listening to everything, it just kind of can't take it all in at the same time. So
Right.
sometimes I like to look at the lyrics and just kind of look at them as written words, almost like a book, as a story, as a narrative, whatever you want to put on it.
Yeah.
And I felt that, and this is going to kind of segue into something else I felt about one of the songs in general, but I felt looking at it lyrically, it reminded me a lot of some of like my favorite vocalists. Like it kind of reminded me a little bit of like you were already saying, the wordplay. One of my favorite lyricists, just because of that, is Keith Buckley of Every Time I Die. Like his wordplay is phenomenal,
Yeah, it
and
is.
reminded me a little bit of that with some of the wordplay you have in some of the songs. There's parts that, in conjunction with the music itself, kind of reminded me a little bit of Scott Weiland. Um, and I don't know if
Yeah,
that's an influence
I've
at all, but I definitely felt a little
absolutely.
STP vibe to some of the songs and parts. But in Fritz the Dog, the way the song is musically, and then the kind of lyrical vibe you went for, I get a Faith No More Zombie Eaters vibe to me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I have no
That's
idea
cool.
if I'm going to be the only one that will ever say that.
I think you are the only one that's ever said that. But I grew up like buying Mike Patton's avant-garde like vocal records, just like
The stuff like you did
noise.
over in like Italy or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, all of like the Ipecac stuff. I was, I grew up on the Melvins. I grew up on just loving Faith No More, Tomahawk, Phantomas, all of those things that kind of went hand in hand with this like strange rock scene that,
Right.
when I was younger, discovering it, I felt like I had found a band that nobody had ever heard before. So I mean, to me, that definitely like that Fritz the Dog was actually the first thing we recorded
Really?
vocally. Yeah, it was the first. It was kind of a way to get all of the whimsical things that I would like to do, just laughing, maybe stoned, on record that may or may not be cool to anyone but me. But it was just kind of a way to clear the room, clear the air, because I knew that song was going to be a silly, like not so much silly, but just like the subject matter, and it was so drunken, and like um, I think vocally I had to play a character more so than being myself, which is, I'd say that a lot of our records have a couple of songs where I'm not talking from my own point of view. I've created a character to speak through. Um, Fritz the Dog being one of them. And yeah, it was definitely Mike Patton, Tom Waits influence for me. Just like the storytelling idea of like, a nonsensical song that could be used for so many like so many different ways to interpret that, I guess, just like this kind of keep like, I don't know, the song itself, like the swagger behind the song,
Right.
the way that the melody of the guitars just kind of have this like drunken stumbling home kind of vibe,
It's like
and to
very,
me
I was gonna say it's very vaudevillain or vaud,
yeah,
yeah, like
vaudevillian.
yes, that's the word.
I don't know if that's the right word.
It fits.
I like it. That's the name of the new He Is Legend record.
There we go.
Vaudevillain. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, but yeah, that one in particular, I think, was just to kind of clear out my mental cobwebs for this, the rest of the album, which was it was a far out experience. But yeah, Fritz was more about, to just not even metaphorically, it's about a dog who's not going to let you touch him, like,
Right.
but that's where that was kind of like, could have been very silly. It was just, lyrically it was whimsical, and I knew that was one of the songs that I could do like in an hour, just because that kind of vocal stylings and like, those pros are just there and ready to jump out at the music, so things like that. Whereas like, other songs are way harder for me and would take me like, hours to do. A song like that I was like actually really excited about getting in and jamming that. It was like, it just kind of came really quickly because I knew it was going to be silly, and it's one of those ones where, when our engineer's in the booth and he's just kind of laughing at what I'm doing, it's like, I know that I'm doing it right, I guess.
Would there ever be a point where maybe you, as the He Is Legend entity, would do like a concept record where maybe you get to explore something like that more lyrically and vocally?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always toy around with that idea. But then I lyrically, I assume that I let my guard down in the studio a lot and try to, you know, have emotive responses to the music. But yeah, I mean, I think I think we've already started writing for a new record, so I think that the possibility of doing something like that is greater now because of how well this all went over, you know. So and I think the stylings and things like that, like I mean, could be a short EP or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I would love to fool around with something like that, just because it, you know, it's fun to write as someone you're not, you know,
Right.
and to have that freedom, unlimited to you know where you can go musically. It would take us all being on the same page, and it would take, I think, more preparation than we like to do for our records, you know, because there's a bit of unfolding, you know,
Right.
like Lotus style unfolding of the way we make our music. So this would be, in order to do a concept record, I think we would have to maybe work in reverse and do vocals first, or at least, like, you know, have everything written and stylized, I guess. Which is, it would be a nice challenge for He Is Legend for sure.
Kind of wrapping up on Fritz the Dog. Something I noticed at the very end of it is there's almost like a hint or like an homage to Money by Pink Floyd, and kind of speaking more of like the concept recordy kind of thing and out there vibe
Yeah,
with the like the delay tremolo part that's going on very faintly in the background.
yeah.
Was anyone else really aware of that, or is it just, and was it intentional to kind of fit the vibe also as well of just kind of being whimsical, as you said?
Yeah, I think that kind of, well, that song kind of turns on the, like, the heaviness of the end of the album, you know.
Right.
So it's sort of like a, like, you know, turning on the machine of like this song that, you know, it to me it sounds like the album gets slowly more possessed by, you know, whatever the concept would be if there was one.
Right.
But you know, the music itself just ends up taking on this like heavier, harder edge after that song, and I mean, not even saying like aggressively in sound, but the subject matter and the, you know, just getting to the end through that, after that song is, I feel like it's a uphill trudge, you know, like it sounds like it just kind of sounds like War Ready, you know.
Yeah, because I was gonna say it goes into the vampire and then the garden, um, which are definitely two really heavy lyrically and musically ways to end on the record.
Yeah.
Um, what speaking of the garden, clocking in at a little just over 6 minutes. What's it like to? Were you guys looking really to write a definitive like album closer, kind of a very grandiose like closing gesture on the record to kind of be like, and this is for you
Yeah,
at the
this
like,
is, that's something that we always have done. We've always written, like, we go into this, we don't necessarily know the order of the songs like when we record them, but we always know what the last song's going to be.
okay,
Um, and so that kind of just, you know, we've done it with all of our records so far. I'm Hollywood being, you know, the one that kind of sparked this whole thing off. But yeah, we knew that that was going to be the song that needed like a really insane guitar solo, you know, like a very Dimebag Daryl guitar solo that we called out to Dusty from Between the Buried and Me. He did that solo on the end of that song.
oh awesome,
Um, Josh Moore, who used to sing for Beloved, and he sang with Classic Case for a while. He did a small vocal part in the middle of that song. It was kind of just like a North Carolina homage to what is considered, like, you know, another chapter in the China White series, I guess. But yeah, it's I thought that was fitting because nobody really got the ideas of China White being peppered throughout Heavy Fruit. Um, so, you know, it was funny when Heavy Fruit came out and everybody's like, "Why no China White 4?" It was like, come on, like, you can't like, you gotta dig.
can't give it to you all
Um,
right up front.
Well, and I mean, like the song "Heavy Fruit" is like clearly like a continuation of that, and a lot, almost every song kind of has ideas of that on "Heavy Fruit," but the like being more upfront about what the garden was about and how it kind of captured these characters from a reverse angle was something really interesting to me. um Again, playing a character um in vocal styling and and it just I felt like that song was I didn't like it at first. Like,
Really?
when I listened back to my vocals, like I felt like I had not ruined the song, but I felt like the vocal melodies were just so strange to me. It was like hard for me to listen to. Um, and I'm not the kind to go back and like really jam our records that much after I've recorded them. I just, I get that kind of, like grit in my head where I'm not into the song as much, or like not into hearing my own voice, I guess.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that song was weird for me for a minute where I was just like, I don't know if I like this, but it definitely grew on me after I heard, the solo and
Well,
once everything was mixed and mastered, I was like, oh, okay, this is different, but it's cool.
speaking of being different, with the, and I kind of already hit on this a little bit ago, with the different stylings of everything, do you find it to be more liberating or taxing to kind of be given the freedom to kind of approach the vocals in a wide variety of manners?
Um, I think it's pretty liberating for me. I don't go in with like I try not to go in with like a chip on my shoulder. I just usually, what I hear in my head, I try to do it. And if it comes out wrong, then that's sometimes the right melody or the right thing to fit the song. Um, when I'm writing just, at home, listening to demos and, going to the rehearsal space and hearing the songs live, like, it's, there's never a part of us where we're like, okay, well, we're going to need to run tracks here. We're going to need to have this backing vocal, do this or that. We're not that kind of band, so it's more like that riff is badass. Like, it's going to go over well live. So, I mean, for me, I think I just don't ever know like, I don't have a direct vocal styling. I don't think I just like do what I do and I never really question it. And I haven't had I've had the good fortune of not having anyone in the studio with me while I'm working that would question it. So, um, it is that one more time with feeling like thing that you just kind of have to push in your head and get the right takes. But I'm, I'm confident in what I do as the vocalist of He Is Legend. I think that I've been given freedom from that because we've been doing this for so long and we know what we sound like. I think that's what Few really is about, is the fact that our sound is kind of set in stone now, and that we can venture into these little avenues, maybe never going back down those avenues again, maybe creating an entire new sound of the band through one said song. Um, but yeah, that's I don't think it's daunting at all. It is very liberating to try new things out vocally, because I don't consider myself the best singer out there. Like I'm not. I don't really think that I have like this like well, I'm definitely not trained, unless it's just street training. But I just I do what I do. I don't really do vocal warm ups. I smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and just and let her rip. And I think that's
But I think
where
it's
the
more indicative of that you're actually feeling these things as opposed to trying to overperform them.
yeah, totally. And I've been down that road too. I've when we were doing Suck Out the Poison, Tooth and Nail sent me to like one vocal lesson with some guy who'd like worked with Bjork and shit, and I was like, I was so into Bjork at the time, so that was what really sold me.
Not so much that you wanted to like learn to take lessons, but maybe just learn how to sound more like Bjork or Bjork-esque.
Well, I just wanted to know what it was like to take a vocal lesson because it seemed so strange to me. And I mean, obviously, I learned a bit from it. I don't know how much you can learn in one lesson, but I also learned that it was like, it's 99% confidence. So if you know you can do it, you can do it.
Right.
And that's just been, I mean, it's not just we're not just up there standing still singing. Like people like me and Keith and high energy rock bands and Chad from Wilson, like we're
Conductors.
entertainers, like we have to be on 11 at all times, and it's a show. It's the same old song and dance for a lot of us, but it's this thing that we've all created, carved out our own little niche, and that comes first. I think the entertainment value of a He Is Legend show is, it's I don't think it's taking away from the vocal stylings or whatever, but it's definitely a high energy rock show, and with some moody sexuality or whatnot peppered in, but it's something that we've done forever. And like you said, like bands that we our cohorts, I would say, or our in the caravan of life, like this is what we do, and we do this because we love it. That's I think that should come across on record more so than anything else.
Yeah.
And now a plane's gonna come overhead, so
Yeah, it's fine. I'll wait for that to just subside for a second. Actually, I'll just take this time to also say when we're finished, like I usually like to talk to the person when we're done. So when I say like I'm done, like I'm not actually done.
yeah,
Okay.
cool. All right.
um, Speaking of Every Time I Die, I'm in an Every Time I Die closed Facebook group, and the new songs have actually been getting a lot of love in the Facebook group and a lot of chatter in it. I made a mention to the group that I was going to do this with you later today, and asked polled if anyone wanted a question to ask. And the only one
Cool.
that I thought was actually kind of cool, just because it speaks to the band's past more so than the future right now. John Groover, if I'm pronouncing that name right, asked, "Will you be releasing I Am Hollywood or Suck Out the Poison on vinyl ever?"
Yeah, we have been trying to have that released from Tooth and Nail.
Is that where they initially where they own the masters?
Yeah, and it's a more difficult process now that they've kind of gone straight to Capitol Music Group. So
Yeah.
without getting into too much detail about like the red tape that's involved and stuff like that, I think it is going to happen, and we want it to happen, but it's going to take more than our like what we can do at this moment. But yeah, the ball is rolling. It's just rolling very slowly uphill in order to have that happen. But yeah, that's cool that that group has been given the song some love, because I mean, I have a personal relationship with those dudes. Just got to see them in Texas a couple weeks back, and it was bittersweet because we had to leave really quick. And
It sucks.
me and Keith have been really good friends. I actually, when I filled in for Maylene, we were on tour together like around Christmas time, and we bonded really hard, all of us, over being away from home for the holidays, and we got into a bus accident on that tour, so there was we kind of had a meld of friendship, and it's just like watching them at South by So What, it was so incredible. I was so proud of those dudes, just to watch them just slay, like better than I've seen them in ages. And
They are one of those bands that just somehow gets tighter and better as they keep going, which somehow is an anomaly since they always have been tight and amazing live.
yeah, I mean, it's just such a great thing to see, because I mean, the last time that I saw them in my hometown, and it was great. It was great to see them, but they were just on a big stage. I went from seeing them in Europe every day when I was with Maylene, at like small punk clubs and just like, thrashing so hard, to watching them headline this stage at this festival a couple weeks ago, and just really like the amount of that's like, they're true fucking rock stars, I mean, and I admire those dudes. I love them with all my heart. Like they're such a good band, and they deserve everything that they have coming to them for sure. It's just a great thing to watch. Because we've known each other for a fucking long time. I mean, I've known Daniel Davison, their new drummer, or I guess newest drummer. He's been in for a while now, but I've known Daniel since we were like 14 years old,
Oh, wow.
So watching this all kind of come full circle, and like finding this amazing home for what he does. He's always been one of my favorite drummers, and and just having a true, like, common kinship with Keith and Andy and Jordan. Just like, it's great to watch them thrive, and to kind of see them at their prime right now. I really do think they're in their prime, playing 20 some songs, thrashing so hard and fast. It's inspiring. It really is. And I don't get inspired by much heavy music.
As I say, it typically seems that when you're in it, you tend to get out of whatever it is that you see nightly. So you're usually like, oh, I'm going to listen to, like you said, Bjork or something a lot more chill. Like, ironically enough, like lately, like I've been digging the new Chris Stapleton record.
Really, I haven't listened to that.
It's country in the sense of, like, it reminds me, and I say it reminds me like I'm fucking 80 years old, but it reminds me of like when my grandfather would play like Conway Twitty, or like, like Hank Williams, like
Chris Stapleton.
Chris Stapleton, the record that he put out, we're in 2017, so 2015, I think it's called Traveler.
Okay.
It's
on it.
It's
I'm on it,
so
for
fucking
sure.
good. Like, I just picked up on record, and then he's coming around here, and I put in to do the show review, and my editor was like, country? And I was like, I covered the Aaron Lewis show. And I was like, so I'm good to cover some country.
Yeah.
And apparently he just announced he's putting out like a double 2 records this year. So, like, I'm
Hell
pretty
yeah.
stoked. It's good, like, whiskey drinking, sit around, put it on a record,
That's right.
and just chill.
That's
and
all
vibe.
I'm going to do today, man. This Saturday, it's getting gloomy out here. I'm ready for it.
So
I'll definitely check that out.
For sure. I was gonna say because you kind of have talked about your time in Maylene, and so I kind of wanted to. I was gonna skirt around it and feel out and see how you were gonna feel about it, but
worst decision I've ever made. But I wouldn't do it again.
You would not even if they were to do ask you to do like a reunion show to help kind of offset some of these medical bills that Dallas has incurred.
I mean, I would, that definitely. I would do something like that. I would never front a band opening a bill throughout the world. Like, especially looking back at it now, it was like, to me, it seemed like it was going to be something more grandiose than it was. Like, I thought kids were going to be like, holy shit, like these 2 bands that are, friends, and they're similar, and he's going to help out his friend. And but I did not take into account that in Germany that means fuck all, and the fact that I have a beard and long hair, and people just think I'm Dallas at that moment. It was just like, okay, well, this is really, this is crazy.
Did you get a lot of that? I mean, there are obviously similarities of your facial appearances, but
right.
I feel like it would have been well known.
There were people that came out that it wasn't that well known. It wasn't really spoken of too much. There was a lot of strain because when we took Maylene out on our first real headlining run, and the dudes that were in Maylene when I filled in for them were not the same dudes that were in the band when we went out with them.
Right.
So the only person that I knew was the merch guy, who's a dear friend of mine. And that was like incentive to go. And then, meeting the guys, rehearsing with them, I was like, this is cool. I'm not doing anything at this moment. It was right after we took our hiatus. So, and it was cool for what it was worth. It was just not, it wasn't like He Is Legend fans coming out to see this unique performance. It was people coming to see Lacuna Coil who were like, "Who's this fucking silly southern rock band?" And I,
And you guys don't play the backing tracks?
right, and well, also I was, like I did it my own way. I wasn't like, I wasn't trying to sing like Dallas Taylor. I was doing my thing to their songs. So I mean, obviously I had a blast. It was a grueling tour. It was actually 2 tours. We did the Rockstar Energy tour in Europe, and we did All That Remains and Lacuna Coil and Chimera. I think it was Chimera and
I miss
us.
that band.
I mean, yeah, right. They were fucking awesome. But yeah, I mean, so it was a big tour, but we were the first band, like usually playing at doors.
I have never
And
understood that.
well, it's
Playing
just
while the
that
doors are
big.
opening, like that sucks.
Yeah, doors are opening. You're making $100. Like, you're literally eating shit. Like, I mean, it's just bad. But so I mean, but then again, like when we were in Europe, we were kicking it with Kill Switch and Every Time I Die and In Flames every night. So it was just like, it was a nice thing to be able to hang out with my friends, but also I was like skirting off to play the show and then going back and like going into their dressing room, and kicking it with them more.
Right.
It just seemed like I wouldn't recommend anyone fill in on vocals for any band, like I just think it's a hard thing to do, I mean, any other position I think can work out well, but a vocalist is just, it's a special kind of thing. And unless you're like the new vocalist, filling in is just, it's difficult, man. I mean, it's really, I did it once for Dead Poetic when I was very young. I did it maybe like 2 shows. And even that was just like, that was very strange. And I don't know. It's just not for me, I don't know if I would do it again. In that grand scale, but yeah, I mean, to help out for sure, I would, I would do that in a heartbeat. But
I've almost been
yeah,
waiting to see that pop up somewhere on like the PRP or whatever, and it'd be like,
right,
that you're doing a one-off show with them again, and all proceeds go to benefit, Dallas's recovery process and all that stuff.
right.
So
I mean, that is actually a good idea. I mean, I've heard he's doing a bit better.
yeah, he just did a podcast with the Emery dudes. They do a Bad Christian podcast.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was really emotionally taxing to listen to it because of how emotionally he kind of gets recounting a lot of the stuff he's been going through in the last few months, or the last like 9 months to a year.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy, man. Because I mean, we were out not too terribly long before that. So, I mean, I wish him well for sure. I'm hoping he's on the mend.
Seems to be. Um, so what can we look forward to in the next year from you from the He Is Legend camp? I assume just lots and lots of touring.
Lots and lots of touring. I mean, let's hope we can work out a big tour with Every Time I Die. Just because that's never happened either. Obviously, we want to do support tours. We're toying around with the idea of doing a headlining run maybe when we get back from Europe, but really playing our cards. We've got a bunch of festivals coming up in the fall.
Doing the overseas festival runs, I would assume.
We're doing, yeah, like I think it's like Rock on the Range and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. I can't remember all of them. I mean,
I'm sure.
I just, I get out of the van and I'm just like, where are we today? I like to not look, I like to not know. But yeah, I mean, we'll be in Europe. We'll be in Europe the day the album drops. We're in Hamburg, Germany. The day after that, we play Graz Rock with the Deftones and Thrice and Under Oath.
I'm excited to see them in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's going to be really killer. Deftones being, one of our all-time favorites. So that'll be really nice. And we're over there for about, right at 3 weeks. Come home to something else, just grinding, supporting the record.
And lastly, socials. Where can everyone find you guys, or you specifically, if you want to plug your own stuff?
Yeah, we're the band is He Is Legend NC. That's on Twitter and Instagram. NC as in North Carolina. And mine is Crucial Dude at Twitter and Instagram. I don't have a Facebook. I know that's a common misconception because someone has a Facebook that's supposed to be me, but that is not me. Um,
That's
yeah,
so
the
weird. That's
band.
such a weird
Yeah,
thing that people do, especially
yeah.
when
I
in
had
these
a
mediums where you can be like, "That's not me." So it's like, then why continue the charade of it being
right.
you?
I actually had a story. Well, it's not a story. I mean, it's what actually happened. But when I first, in the MySpace days when we were first touring, there was a kid who was pretending to be me on a MySpace and created like a fake AIM account and was talking to this B actress from Hollywood that um, they had made plans to go see Motley Crue in North Carolina. Um, all unbeknownst to me, I noticed that this woman had posted comments on the He Is Legend MySpace page on pictures of me, and me being just a young strapping young lad. I was like, who are you? And then this all unfolds to where this kid was taking, like coming to shows. Like he came to a show at Soma in San Diego. Next day, all of his pictures have changed to like candid shots of me like wandering around. Like he was just like taking photos of me,
So fucked
like
up.
fucking yeah, smoking cigarettes and shit. And like
Uh,
they all changed to that day's picture. So like I like created a ruse to kind of tell this dude like, hey, I'm dating Rachel now. Like, what are you gonna do about that? Like, yeah, and
you
and
catfished the catfisher.
I catfished the catfisher, and then but he ends up going to this girl's house
Oh shit.
and like sitting on her front, like on her car with a notebook, and she calls me out of the blue because we had like developed a relationship just out of trying to like to get this guy, get him,
Right.
nab him.
Right.
Um, And so he like ends up at her house and breaks in through the back door, and he's like, "It's Schuylar, it's Schuylar." And she's like, "I know Schuylar. He lives in North Carolina. What are you talking about?" And then come to find out, I had heard, putting this all together, I had heard from other bands that they had been meeting this guy in LA that was playing "I Am Hollywood" before it came out. Like he must have got a leaked copy or something, and was playing it for people, for other bands. Like, yeah, this is my band. My name's Skylar. Da, 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 singing over the songs, like total whack job.
Jesus
And yeah,
Christ.
her neighbor saw him break in, and then came and like tackled him, and he got like a restraining order or whatever. And never heard another word about it. Like never met the girl, never fucking heard another word about it. It was just like this crazy true crime shit that just like came out of nowhere.
That's
But
so
yeah,
fucked up.
I was trolling him really hard on like AIM, just being like, he's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, dude. Like, what are you doing? You're ruining my relationship. I was like, you're pretending to be me. You've
Right.
created a relationship that I can just jump right into. It was probably not the best move now, thinking about all the the crazy people out there in the world. But at the time, it was like, I can't believe this is happening to me.
That
It's
is
like a
really
Seinfeld
weird.
moment. But yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
You
very
want to
weird.
talk about people like pretending to be people? That was the ultimate, the pin ultimate of that whole situation.
He got catfish before it had his term.
Yeah, I should have wrote that movie.
It's really fucked. It's
You got
really funny.
catfished by a dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say my wife is whenever we catch an episode, if someone's like, "Oh, we fell in love on MySpace," she goes, "It's the real person," because like that's too far. Like no one's carrying that ruse like from different
Yeah,
platforms across. Like,
yeah,
oh, we
yeah,
started on MySpace, now we're on Facebook, now we're on this. It's like if you started on MySpace, it probably really is that person
yeah.
because we
If you
didn't
started on
realize that you could
MySpace,
like fuck around and create fake profiles. So
or like it's like if you started on MySpace, you probably never deleted that account. Like you still
no,
have that.
I still have
You go back and
mine.
you go back and check it every now and then.
I had some good
Yeah,
writing.
I
I
did.
was
I did too, man. And that was one of the things that I really
oops.
missed about when I deleted my Facebook and my MySpace account. Like I didn't save any of those blog entries or whatever. and I wish that those were still in existence, but and all the photos I lost off of
Yep.
my Facebook, that was a bummer, but it needed to be done. I was getting too agitated by, knowing what my mom ate, or my, what kind of, like, what my dog looked like that day. Like, it was getting too much.
Right. Well, that's a great plug for your socials in general.
Yeah. Find me on Twitter tweeting like once a month saying like I found my screwdriver, way to go. Or like, like I'm in Peoria. Come see me.
You have to play Dig when you're in Peoria.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I did when I went to go see the
Totally.
Wilson Dudes. As soon as we hit the sign, I played Dig, and I was like, I have to.